Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon. My name is Kiara Collins, and these are your news and sports updates to 12 o'clock. This month, the City of Vancouver will begin to upgrade the Granville Bridge to create a safer, more accessible crossing for walking, rolling, and cycling. The work is a part of the Granville Connector project, which includes converting two west side travel lanes on the bridge to separate pedestrian routes, similar to the projected lanes on the Burrard Bridge. The city will also be removing the loops that connect the Pacific Street at the north end of the bridge and replacing them with new street networks. Paul Storr, Director of Transportation, warns the public to expect some delays in their daily commute.
Essentially 2 lanes in either direction on the bridge will be maintained during construction, and even the pre-pandemic traffic volumes essentially fit into that. But it definitely will be slower, and we expect some drivers will end up taking different routes. But we're not expecting significant congestion as part of this.
Additional improvements, including installation of a new traffic signals, wayfinding signage, and the creation of all ages and abilities pedestrian and bicycle connection to the Arbutus Greenway at south end of the bridge. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada is still determining how to best support those affected by Monday's devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Both countries were rocked by a 7.8 magnitude quake that has left more than 11,000 dead, setting off international aid efforts that now include a $10 million commitment from Canadian government, and search and rescue teams being flown in from the U.S. Trudeau says the country is considering how it can provide support in the best way.
A lot of Canadians have their origins or family members in that region. I think particularly of all the Syrian refugees who've come to Canada over the past years to build a life, who must be so worried about loved ones and families back home.
Donations are pouring into the Vancouver warehouse for those affected by the earthquake, but volunteers organizations say countries could most benefit from professional search and rescue aids. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says that if his party forms the next government, he will honor the healthcare funding increase Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has promised. Trudeau has offered to increase healthcare transfers to the province and territories by $17 billion, approve previous commitments, and to provide another $25 billion via one-on-one deals over the next decade. Poilievre spoke to reporters before his caucus meeting today.
We are going to honor it because Conservatives never allow cutbacks to healthcare. When we were in office, under the previous Harper government, we increased healthcare transfers by 6% every single year.
The deal Poilievre is referring to had been negotiated by previous Liberal government of Paul Martin. The future of banking is green. Van City members are now able to track their carbon footprint. Shivani Joshi has more.
Every Van City Visa credit card holder can track the estimated carbon emissions of their purchases through the credit union's app with a tool called Carbon Counter. The tracker is meant to help Van City members better understand their carbon footprint while also providing advice on how to reduce it. Carol Liao, the director of the Center for Business Law at UBC, says this is the way of the future.
To me, these trends and interventions we're seeing from corporate leaders are really forcing companies to adapt. And there's a great demand right now for accessible information to allow the public to make the right decisions in lessening carbon emissions and helping mitigate and adapt to climate change.
Van City is the first financial institution in Canada to offer its members a way to measure their carbon footprint. Shivani Joshi, 1680 The Crow.
Shivani joins us now. How's it going, Shivani?
Hi, Kiara.
So can you tell us, how does this carbon counter work?
Yeah, it's a super interactive tool. Van City members are able to see their monthly carbon footprint and compare it to the national average. And, they can also see which of their credit card purchases have the highest environmental impact on the climate.
Wow. So what kind of climate action would this tool help drive?
Yeah, they're calling this a form of behavioral nudging, where people can see their carbon footprint and become more educated and aware of their choices to hopefully inspire climate action. Back to you, Kiara.
Thanks so much, Shivani. BC Provincial Firefighters is offering a new prevention program for Burn Awareness Week. Nearly 150 children in the province experience burn-related injuries each year, according to the BC's Children's Hospital. Scald burns, which are caused by hot liquids, is the leading cause of injury for children, affecting 78% of children under the age of 5. This free 30-minute online course is called Two Hots for Tots, aiming to lower the yearly number that has been steady for some time. West Shore RCMP has welcomed its first ever fully electric police cruiser to its fleet. The Tesla Y model was welcomed and celebrated by police force reaching this milestone. This direction is aiming to help hit the government's goal of net zero by 2050. BC's post-secondary education minister, Selena Robinson, says she's undergoing chemotherapy after a scan revealed her cancer has come back. Robinson told the province legislature that she's got the news on January 27th. The former finance minister says she is confident that she will be fine, but it was hard to tell her father and her children that their mother has cancer again. Robinson has previously shared her 2006 diagnosis of a rare form of intestinal cancer in a post on social media. BC's Interior Health has responded to the conviction of its former top doctor on sexual assault and sexual interference involving a child in Alberta, saying someone found guilty of such charges is unable to fulfill the duties of the position. The health authority has previously said Dr. Albert Del Villers was placed on general paid leave in June of 2021, then reassigned to administrative duties 4 months later. Its latest statement says the person convicted of such charges could not continue in the position of Chief Medical Health Officer, which involves public-facing leadership. The 54-year-old appeared in court in Grand Prairie via video from home in Kelowna, having moved from Alberta to BC in 2020. Police say 2 children are dead and 6 others are seriously hurt after a bus crashed into a daycare north of Montreal. Laval police spokesperson Erica Landry says the 51-year-old bus driver has been arrested and charged with homicide and dangerous driving. She says police are still trying to determine a motive.
The whole Laval Police Department is involved in this investigation right now. We have a crisis center right here at the school.
2 years after a tugboat sank off the coast of British Columbia, south of Kitimat, taking the lives of captain and 1 other crew member, charges have been brought against the Rainworth Marine Services and James Bates. According to the court's records, a total of 8 counts have been laid against them. The charges related to alleged violations of occupational health and safety regulations and under the Workers' Compensation Act. A first appearance is expected next month in Prince Rupert. Unionized workers in the city of Yellowknife are out on the picket lines after the city locked out employees following a failed mediation between the parties. Strike Captain Daryl Snow works in the city's multiplex, says picketers will be out in the force until there's a fair deal.
I'm feeling good. Morale's high, as you can see. Lots of people out. We're freezing for a reason, and that reason is we want a fair wage.
This will affect libraries, pools, community areas, and dumping to the public, as well as reduce other services. BCIT Recreation is hoping to encourage more community in Burnaby through an innovative on-campus recreation center. Jacob New explains.
The Consistency Challenge is being promoted by the Recreation Department as a way to be social, active, and have a chance to win a prize. Entries are given to participants for dropping in a minimum of 3 times a week at the rec center. Melissa Stamatovich with the department says it's the second run of the challenge, with it first launching last October.
We saw people actually really excited to come in, and people that maybe walked in, maybe their first time, not really knowing the space at all, giving them an incentive to come in a little bit more regularly and feel kind of like a sense of...
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Teresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
Welcome back. Now for sports. Vancouver Canucks are hitting the ice tonight against the New York Rangers at 5 p.m. This is the first back-to-back games in New York as they take on the Islanders tomorrow. Thatcher Demko continues to be sidelined with an injury. However, he did return to practice yesterday. Spencer Martin is expected to be in goal tonight. NBA history was made last night when LeBron James broke a scoring record that had stood for nearly 40 years. Brian Clark with ABC has the story.
The first points came on October 29, 2003. Nearly 20 years later, it was number 38,388.
LeBron, one-on-one against Kenrick Williams, backing him in, turns, shoots, scores! There it is!
That shot put LeBron James all alone atop the NBA scoring list as heard on ESPN 710 LA. He surpassed another Lakers legend, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
The king, LeBron James, has passed the captain.
Kareem was in the arena for the occasion. Brian Clark, ABC News.
The Toronto Raptors are taking on San Antonio Spurs at 4:30 today. OG Anunoby, is listed as out as ahead of today's game. Anunoby and Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam are names that have been gathering attention from around the league before the trade deadline, which is tomorrow. All three of these players were a part of the Raptors' 2019 champion team. This comes after the Raptors have failed to live up to the expectation this season. They are currently in 11th place in the Eastern Conference, which is outside of playoff and play-in spots. The Philadelphia Eagles are expected a tough game against Kansas City Chiefs in Sunday's Super Bowl 57 game. George Tanner with the Associated Press reports.
Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown, who was picked up in a trade with the Titans prior to the 2022 draft, says he wanted to play in the Super Bowl for a long time.
This was always the expectation. When I got here, my first post-game speech, I told him I don't want to put no pressure on him, but this is the goal, This is why we play the game. I'm not playing for individual awards, like playing the game to be the best and to hold that trophy up at the end, So right now we're right here. We're at the door. We just got to go take it.
Brown set a regular season franchise record with 1,496 yards, but had just 7 catches for 50 yards. In the 2 playoff games, the Eagles won by 55 points. George Tanner, Phoenix.
The International Olympic Committee is stepping up efforts to explain its position on trying to help Russian athletes qualify for next year's Paris Olympics amid a backlash from Ukraine and its allies. Charles Delesma with the Associated Press reports.
Publishing a series of explanations and rebuttals to its critics, the Olympic body has responded to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's invitation for his IOC counterpart, Thomas Bach, to return and see the ruined city of Bakhmut. Currently, there are no plans for another visit to Ukraine, the IOC says, noting that Bach had visited Kyiv last July and had since spoken with Zelensky in telephone calls. The IOC has once more cited the opinion of 2 UN human rights experts who support the view that Russians and Belarusians should not face discrimination. Instead, they should compete.
I'm Kiara Collins, and that was your news and sports update to noon.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow. Now it's time for the comment.
With the NBA trade deadline just 2 days away, meaning this is the last chance teams have to add or get rid of players, the rumors are getting out of hand. The Brooklyn Nets just traded away controversial star point guard Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. Now this still leaves the Brooklyn Nets with a competitive team surrounding superstar Kevin Durant. However, with the departure of Durant's best teammate and friend Kyrie Irving, this has now sparked trade rumors around Durant, and the Boston Celtics are reportedly interested. Now, this is a trade the Celtics should stay away from. While Durant is one of the best players in the league, there are a few key reasons it doesn't make sense for the Celtics. First and foremost, Durant has a history of injury problems. He missed the entire 2019-2020 season with a ruptured Achilles tendon, and then suffered a hamstring strain during the 2021 playoffs that kept him out for several games. Even this current season, Durant has only played 39 of 53 games. At the age of 34, all these injuries become more difficult to overcome. Additionally, acquiring Durant would hurt the Celtics' depth as a team, something that is currently a strength for them. The Celtics are talented enough as is. This is evident by them having the best record in the NBA and the only team in the league to be top 5 in both offensive and defensive rating. They can keep building off the incredible success from this season without any major trade.
It's extremely important for people to stay healthy and to stay active as much as possible.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Hello, and welcome back to today's episode of
The Crow Chronicles.
I'm Alicia Nolasco.
And I'm Jeremy Lee,
your host. So today we're really excited. Tell us why, Jeremy.
We are really excited today because we're talking about a shark story that took place 1905, actually here in Vancouver, which is honestly kind of scary, but also really cool. Don't worry, it was 100 years ago, so...
It's fine.
It's fine. It was in 1905.
Yeah. We got to talk to marine biologist expert Juan Jose, who works in UBC.
Yeah.
And we also got to speak to
Bradley Miller. He's a historian, and both of them give us like a lot of really good info on sharks and what people thought of them back then, as well as how the environment was back then compared to now. And honestly, let's just dive right into the story.
Let's just dive right in.
Yeah. It's July 5th, 1905. It's around 6:30 p.m. From the shores of Falls Creek, Ed Dusenberry, a man who owned several small leisure boats at the dock, is passively watching a few boys playing at the beach. Among them is 8-year-old Harry Menzies. He's playing in the shallows of the creek. Why was this young boy playing without supervision in Falls Creek at night, you might ask? Historian Bradley Miller explains.
Kids at that point in history often had a lot of freedom to roam around the city, to swim, to play in the woods. I've both read a lot and heard a lot from people from previous generations who talk about what we would now consider, or right now consider, the unbelievable amount of freedom that kids had. So I'm not surprised at all that a kid was swimming in Falls Creek at 6 a.m.
Seeing a young boy playing in the inlet might not have been odd, but seeing something else in the water swimming towards that boy would have definitely raised some concerns. At first, Ed Dusenberry thinks it's another person coming in from the deeper water. They are heading straight for Harry, though. Then he sees a fin. Calling out to the boy to get out of the water, Ed grabs a pike and runs toward the shoreline. In a matter of seconds, an 11-foot, 4-inch, 1,100-pound shark is seen coming up out of the water. But why? Why did this shark go for a buoy near the beach, where there were often people around? Dr. Juan Jose Oliva reminds us that sharks are creatures of instinct and habit.
Remember that sharks have a system, a unique system called the ampullae or Lorenzini, which is a sensory organ, like to detect electric fields around, right? And they like to test, right? Sharks like to test first before deciding whether or not they need to eat that kind of prey. It might be well the case that shark was there probably scavenging, eating that animal, and it happened to be that the boy was in the right place at the right time where the shark also was scavenging, and maybe he smelled it.
Harry is on the beach. He's unharmed, but the shark is now a little out of its depth. The water is too shallow for it to make a quick getaway.
What happened with the shark that they cannot see very well in the water, right? The sight is not good, so they depend in the olfactory system and the electric fields around them to try to look for food, right? So it's important. And for any shark, I think there is an opportunistic interaction to get a bite from another animal, they will do it, right?
Ed has by now gotten into the water and is wrestling, pike in hand, with the shark. He has it hooked by its tail and is trying to pull it ashore. But this only angers the shark, which is now showing its teeth. Ed is staring into the wide-open shark's mouth of, as the Vancouver World put it, the genuine Hawaiian man-eating variety. If this started out as an unprovoked attack, it has now become an unprovoked attack. A lot of people would freeze in their tracks if they saw something as menacing as an angry 1,000-pound shark staring them in the face. But Ed knows not to lose his head, or his arm. Pulling his pike from the shark's tail, Ed lunges it into the shark's throat. But the shark continues to fight back. Ed doesn't know what to do now. It's too late to force the shark away. It's far too angry for that. But he also can't pull it to shore. All he can do is just wrestle with the shark for a while. But the cold is starting to set in. Ed is waist deep in water and shark blood, drenched to his skin. But the adrenaline is still there. For now, anyway. But let's not forget little Harry on shore. The alarm is raised, and soon Ed and his pike are reinforced by the strong arms of nearby mill workers, neighbors, and fishermen. They try again to drag the animal ashore, but this time the shark is only cut while the grip of the pike is loosened. It would be no good to drag the pike out of the shark's mouth, leaving it to get away, or worse, to attack. So they waited. Let's set the scene again. It's July of 1905. It's around 8 p.m. 5 or 6 people are wrestling with a shark in the shallows of Falls Creek. The shark is bleeding from its wounds. The pike is still lodged in its throat. But it's taking everyone to hold the animal still. It's been an hour and a half since the shark was spotted and attacked. But now, it was finally giving way to its wounds. The battle finally ends. Ed and his companions could now take a better look at the creature. But then they realized something.
The average length is 4.8 meters or 16 feet.
This immense animal wasn't even fully grown, and yet it was so large that they had to wait till morning before they could take it ashore. And even then, it took 20 people to drag it up out of the water. It was quite a sight to see. This gave Ed an idea. He set up a tent and started charging 10 cents a person to see the huge animal up close, which was a lot of money back then. And so Ed Dusenberry is named in our history as a shark killer and a man who's smart with his money. I don't know which is better.
Wow. I really like that story. I feel like we could see more sharks around Vancouver, maybe?
Eventually, that'd be cool. Though also kind of scary. But don't worry, it was in 1905, guys.
Well, honestly though, like seriously speaking here, you guys, I think that it's not really common to see sharks here, and I got the assignment to look into depth
Yeah, I gave her that assignment. I am the boss. Not really, no.
We have both the assignment of talking to both of our amazing guests about this story. And I'm just going to go...
You know, we're going to go in depth. We're going to go in depth with facts about sharks and whatnot.
Yeah, and whatnot.
You know.
Let's go.
Let's just go in depth.
It is interesting to think that more than 100 years ago, in what we know as Falls Creek, a shark attack like this was seen. According to marine biologist Juan Jose Alava, the sharks are not known to attack people.
We don't hear that much about shark attacks here in BC because it's cold water, and the species that usually attack humans are basically tropical, subtropical, or kind of cold water, like the great white shark, tiger shark, bull sharks, blue shark, the oceanic tick sharks.
This species is known as the blunt-nosed six-gill shark, and is not known for attacking people unless provoked. At least, no such incidents have been reported. According to the International Shark Attack File, there has only been one deliberate attack of this species since the 1500s, and they seem to be quite calm around the presence of divers. But let's talk more about this shark. As humans, we are terrified of large sharks like the one we saw in the Jaw movie. However, this species is nothing like what we think. And since we have talked about its behavior, historian Bradley Milley says that many years ago, fear of sharks was not the public knowledge.
People knew very little about the behavior of sharks and their relationships with people. There was a widespread belief that sharks were in fact not dangerous at all to people, any species. In the early 20th century, there was a well-known American industrialist that offered some huge amount of money to anyone who could demonstrate that a shark attack had ever occurred.
In that note, Ed Dusenberry would not look like a hero today, since conserving shark is part of the ecological movements we have and we are involved nowadays.
There was a series of famous shark attacks during the First World War off the East Coast in the United States, and some historians credit those attacks with changing American public opinion on sharks and shark attacks, and actually raising awareness of the fact that sharks could sometimes be dangerous to people. And so sharks went from something that most people, even swimming in the ocean where we are so vulnerable, didn't know about or think about, to being a kind of folk devil of U.S. society. And in the wake of those attacks, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Coast Guard, thousands of ordinary citizens undertook a massive killing campaign of every shark that they could find within reach of the northern east coast of the United States.
Falls Creek is a short, narrow inlet in the heart of Vancouver, separating downtown and West End neighborhoods from the rest of the city. Back in the day, Falls Creek was 5 times the present size and included a large tidal mudflat. This ecological rich site was blanketed with thick eelgrass, plentiful clambets, and countless songbirds. And the real question is, how did a shark like the six gills get into Falls Creek?
Today, we might expect in the future, because there is changing ocean, there is ocean warming going on, the temperature of the ocean is changing, and that might allow condition for some shark species to conquer new habitat areas like BC waters. Also, BC waters are cold waters. That's the reason why we can see some great white shark in the offshore environment around, offshore to the west coast of Vancouver Island. So it might be not surprising that in the future, because of the changing ocean condition, because of climate change, maybe there is going to be new niches, ecological niches, or new habitat that can provide the condition for sharks to thrive, to survive in our waters.
The blunt-nosed six-gill shark is found in a latitudinal range between 6 degrees north and 48 degrees south in the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans. but it has been off the coast of North and South America, from North Carolina to Argentina and Alaska to Chile. That explains a shark like this could be found near Falls Creek. The truth, though, is that this inlet preserves a lot of marine species, and sometimes we can see a number of different animals, and it is not surprising to see sharks like this.
It might be that the condition of Falls Creek are improving and there is food availability in the sediment. In the case of water, actually might serve as a stopover, as an area in which they can rest a little bit, look for some food, and then they will continue going. But I understand there is a population that remain around here, right, of gray whales that remain around the BC water, and it seems that Falls Creek might offer some kind of habitat suitability for gray whales in this case, right, to look for some refugee or some kind of area in which they can find food or escape from predator.
Okay, so that was like a lot of really good information. Like before we even like started working on this episode, I like my entire view of like this story, like we found some articles online and we read them and we're like, oh yeah, so it's a shark monster attack and stuff like that. And my entire view of this whole story has like changed. Like it's gone completely 180. I don't know about you, Alicia, but yeah, well, it's crazy.
It has, as a matter of fact. I feel like both Juan and Bradley gave us a lot of great information. One of the topics that I want to definitely bring up is how Bradley said that in the World War I, the view of the sharks was completely different. It has come up, I mean, how we see sharks right now, it's such a stereotype compared of like 100 years ago when people had no idea that they were supposed to be eating people or whatsoever. So that put us like in perspective, at least for me.
And it's really cool also because the articles that we found were all written past World War I, so it makes so much more sense that people are talking about sharks in this way. Because I was thinking, hey, why if back then people didn't see sharks as monsters that constantly attack people and as like a thing to fear in the ocean, then why were they writing articles like this? But then you look at it and you're like, oh, this article was actually written in 1925, which is like 20 years later, and like that's 5-6 years after World War I ends. And so if you look at that, then it like just really puts everything into perspective. And honestly, I think Juan and Bradley, they I know they've never met before, but they should start their own podcast just because they both know and they geek out about sharks so much. But they should start their own podcast.
They should, as a matter of fact. Yeah, and then the same page, speaking of like our incredible guests, Juan did mention something about seeing more sharks, or well, honestly, not seeing more sharks in Falls Creek, but in general in like the BC waters. And it's that he obviously mentioned, taking care of our oceans, making our earth a bit more blue and green, but the whole idea of like keeping a clean environment says that he said, like, as he brought up, we could see more animals, not only sharks, but whales or who knows. We have animals coming around here. Yeah. We just don't see them as often or so close to the shore.
Yeah, because killing sharks is, as Juan pointed out, that it's become illegal to kill sharks, and so Bradley said in World War I there was a mass killing of sharks. The Navy, the Army, and a lot of civilians just started killing sharks because there was this stereotype that sharks would just attack you no matter what. So, and now the population of sharks is coming back. So the chances of us seeing sharks again in Falls Creek has actually risen, I think. But don't worry. Like I said before, it's not 1905.
It's not 1905. Falls Creek, as I said as well, has changed a lot, and I don't think we might be seeing like this animals as close, but we do want to keep like our waters clean. So we do have this type of animals, swimming around our clean oceans. And I mean, Juan also mentioned that Falls Creek has changed in a good way. I mean, it was very polluted back then, and now has come. I mean, a lot of
we gotta. Like Vancouver's pretty good at keeping things. I mean, we're trying to keep things clean. So hopefully we'll do better. But
as much as we want to keep talking about sharks, I think it's time to say goodbye to this episode. But I guess we'll see you guys on our next episode.
On the Crow Chronicles.
Again, Alicia Nolasco
and Jeremy Lee. and we will see you guys, or you'll hear us or whoever next time.
Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter at BCIT The Crow.